Guru is always paradoxical. Good. Shall we meditate for a few moments? Good. What shall we speak about this evening? Our weakness, how people carry the necessary. Each one is only one.
Dear Guru Raj, you've said that underlying all fears is the fear of death. What is this fear, and how can we best deal with it? What is death?
Die. Simple. The fear of death is the fear of the unknown. And people are always afraid of that which is unknown. Your death is one of the most pleasurable experiences you could ever have, especially for meditators, because when you go into the deepest state of meditation, you are dead. You have withdrawn yourself from your senses. There is no sense input. The body is lost, and only the mind and the spirit remains. So, at the time of death, this happens. I've died over 1,000 times and have come alive again. So I speak from experience. At the moment of death, there are no angels coming to fetch you. That is just mythically speaking. At the moment of death, your entire lifetime flashes across your eyes in a moment, because in that stage, there is no worldly time. You capture your entire life in a moment and it flashes across you. Now that very flash of your entirety goes through your mind. And when you drop this physical body, that which goes forward is your mind only, but empowered with the eternal spirit. The spirit energizes everything, even your body and your mind. But having dropped the body, the spirit goes on because it is always there, and the mind is energized by the spirit. There have been some books written, like Life After Life and Life After Death, and they were reports done by doctors who took the evidence of people that were on the verge of death, but they do not form a complete picture. The most common experience people have is this: as if they are going through a tunnel, and a light comes from the other side to fetch you. That is not true at all. The tunnel which people experience at the time of death is the sinking of the conscious level of the mind into the subconscious level, and then into the superconscious level. And the light that you see coming to you is the light that is within you, reflected outside of you. So there is no light at all coming to fetch you. There are no angels at all. Someone asked me a question once, how many angels are there on the head of a pin? And I told him, I can tell you. 14,800,462. And if you don't believe me, go and count it. There are other forms of existences in other planes. Those existences are still relative, but they do signify a person's state of evolution. The highly evolved you are, you go to a finer plane. And the less evolved you are, you go to a more grosser plane. There's no devil there with his horns and tail and throwing you into a fire. This has been started by the churches to instill fear in you. When churches could not win people's hearts with love, they captured you with fear, the fear of eternal damnation. Now the words are contradictory to each other. There is damnation. If there is damnation, how can it be eternal? That's it. So when churches became organized, for example, our Christian faith in Council of Nicene, 342 AD, I think it was, they formulated various ideas. And churches became a business. Now, whenever there are businesses are involved, it requires organization. So in order to organize these things, they formulated certain plans. And it's all man-made, those cardinals sitting in the council. Brilliant businessmen, but not real spiritual men. And this has not only happened in Christianity, but in all other religions. For example, in Hinduism, you find, real things which are beyond our senses. If a person dies, the son has to do a ritual. And of course, a priest is called in with all his mumbo-jumbo. And the priest is paid for it. Now, they don't charge you a fee, but every time they say a mantra, Om Vishwani Deva Purusam, blah, 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 right, put 1 rupee there. Another mantra comes up, put another rupee there. So when you do this ritual, you've got to take a whole bag of rupees with you. And then the last one is this. You got to donate to the priest a calf. Baby calf. Now they maintain that when you die, you come to a river. And to get on the other side, you get hold of the calf's tail, and he takes you across to the river. It could be symbolic, not to be taken literally, as in everything else. So religions today have become business. And I don't know if I told you this before, that the 2 richest organizations in the world is the church organization and the insurance company. The church promises you heaven after you are dead, and the insurance company promises you a lot of money after you are dead. Now, what happens on the other side? That is the question. Once you've passed away, the body is totally useless. But the body is not destructible. the various elements that compose the body goes back to its original elements. Air goes to air, ether to ether, fire to fire, water to water. So in that way, even the body remains immortal. Now when you pass away, your mind is in a different plane of existence, depending upon the clarity of your mind, and that plane will be there for you. At that time, you do not evolve. The physical body is necessary to register experiences in order to evolve. But one thing, we can call it the soul. There's a difference between spirit and soul, because soul is the mental makeup of a person. The only thing it does there is evaluate itself. It goes through a whole process since it was the first amoebic cell or primal atom that mixed and intermixed with other atoms, subatomic, subatomic matter. And it has a habit of duplicating itself and replicating itself, and that is how evolution began. Evolution is nothing else but a force from the primal Big Bang when this universe came about. So this universe also has its form of depth. You have heard the theory of the black hole, where everything is sucked in. But what happens? It's sucked in from one side, and when it becomes heavy, it explodes, and the energies flow out from the other side, and the force of those energies to come back to stillness, to an equilibrium, that process is evolution. Nothing else. Fine. So there, on the other side, you're evaluating yourself for the purpose of purifying yourself. And in order to purify yourself, you have to take on another body. And when the time is right, and you work with a very perfect calculator and computer there, no mistakes, all the feed-ins are perfect. And then after finally, over a period of time, you take a rebirth. Now, some religions believe that if you live as a bad person, you can be born as a rat or a cat or a dog, but that is not true. Once you have reached the human kingdom, you will always come back to the human kingdom, perhaps not on this planet. There are thousands and thousands of planets in space that are very similar to our planets. Fine. So the time is ready now. You have evaluated to be born again. But according to your evolutionary development, you will have to be born to parents that has the right combination of chromosomes and genes, the proper genetic combination, so that you could take birth through it. So the average time for a human being, a highly developed, cultured human being, is around about between 30 to 50 years to take on another body. There are only two kinds of people that are not born very soon. There's the very so-called evil and the very good. Hitler might take thousands of years to get reborn. He would have to find similar type of parents with the same amount of evil before he would be reborn. And that applies to a saint. He also takes a long time to take rebirth because the kinds of parents that he would need would have to be of a certain caliber. That applies to ordinary human beings. But to an Avatara, he does not need to be born again. He is liberated. But the Avatara is a worker. He is the eternal wanderer. And he comes back to earth, and he can choose any vehicle in spite of whatever genetic combinations there are. So, when in science we talk of hereditary values, remember that that is for the ordinary person. That because the mental makeup or the genetic makeup of the parents are very similar to the makeup of that soul that is to be born. Therefore, it inherits many of the qualities of the parents. We use the word it inherits, but really speaking, it is not an inheritance. Good. So now we go back to the other side again. To be on the other side is a pleasurable experience. It's a very, very peaceful experience. And especially people like our Gail Garba Gomila that works with people that are dying. If these things are explained to them, it could be very, very helpful. It will give them some peace of mind. So, whatever you think, whatever predominant thought you have, you will find there. If you believe intensely that you will meet your late husband or late wife, or your grandfather or grandmother or a friend, you will meet that person there. But that person won't be a real. That person will be a projection of your own mind. Because you have that deep feeling, that deep desire. Like many husbands and wives, they love each other so much, and the husband or wife passes away and says, let me too pass away so I can be with her. If that desire is intense enough, you will conjure up that person. So it is unreal. The only reality that one could call it, if we wish to, would be the projection and the very, very dominant thought of your own mind. So that is what happens there. Now you meet angels and you meet highly evolved souls. Forget it. You don't. You are too busy evaluating yourself. But if your projection is there in your mind that I'm going to meet Saint Peter, then you'll find a form that would be Saint Peter according to your conception. If you feel that you're a good person on earth, and if you sincerely believe that there's a God sitting up there with a long beard on his throne, you will see that. Everything is a projection. What is here is above, what is above is below. This entire life we live is nothing else but a projection too. It's a projection of our own minds. And the mind can be cultivated to project things. Mind is strong enough, you think of a thing, and it comes into reality. Can you actually see it? Yes. For example, you're talking of fear. You walk down the dark path and you have fear of muggers. When you see in this dark path a stump of a tree, and you would think in your mind, oh, that's a mugger lurking there to attack me. And yet, when you go nearby, it is just a stump of a tree. So, in reality, your fears are unreal. I've told you many times that we mull over things of the past and project them into the future. And that is what happens with fear. Because you did not know, it was unknown to you that that is only a stump of a tree, you took it to be a mugger that is going to mug you. Every thought we think, we attract the equivalent of that thought in our lives. Many people have come to me and tell me that they are so poor and they do this and they do that and they do that and still they remain in poverty. I say the reason is very simple, because you have developed a poverty consciousness. And slowly I turn the poverty consciousness. This requires a lot of sessions being together. Slowly I turn the poverty consciousness into prosperity consciousness. And they become prosperous. So, fear rules our lives most of the time, and those fears are without foundation. There are certain fears which become real. You haven't been able to pay your rent for 3 months, and you fear that the landlord or landlady is going to throw you out. Who has created that fear? You yourself, because you haven't paid your rent for 3 months. Why didn't you do something about it? Go work hard. Take on an extra job. Go and wash the dishes at some restaurant. Go and do this, go and do that. Go and sweep streets. Go around knocking on doors. Do you need any extra help as a char lady or a little handyman? Or can I do something about your garden? Then you'd be able to pay that rent. So you've brought it upon yourself, and then you fear that I'm going to be thrown out. Especially in America, such a prosperous country. And I'm so surprised that you have 8 million people living under the breadline. That is very surprising. We need not be so. Nothing. So, the point which I'm trying to make is that fears are brought in by ourselves. I've never found any person in my life that fears me. No one. I've not found any person in my life that hates me, because hate and fear are blood brothers. Yes, they all love me. Why? Because I express that love every time. Every breath I take is love. I never harbor an ill thought towards anyone, and therefore I have no enemies. See? So all these things are created by us while we are living, and when we die, all the things that happen on the other side is also created by us. Now, why should we fear the unknown? Why? Rather fear the known if you want to fear. But do not fear the unknown, because you don't know what the unknown holds for you. So if you do not know what holds for you in the unknown, what right have you got to fear it? And that's it. So you can go through various stages or various planes of existences. Now the person that has reached a high evolutionary state is free on the other side to go down and visit the lower planes of existence. But the one at a lower plane cannot go up to the higher planes. And that is how, even after you are dead, your subtle body leaves you. And the subtle body can gain a lot of knowledge by being able to traverse all these different planes of existences. And that knowledge would be helpful to you when you take a rebirth again. Really speaking, no one dies. We're only discussing it because of this death phenomena. Nothing dies. Everything is alive. If one atom is destroyed, the entire universe will collapse. Nothing dies. Everything is alive. It's like death is like going from one room into another, or changing a yellow shirt into a blue shirt, and yet it's the same Guru Raj. Like that. So, what I'm trying to say, that the fear of death is totally without foundation. Death is non-existent. Only life is existing. Dropping this body is a good thing. Organs get tired. Your suit gets old, tattered, torn, and you buy a new suit. What's wrong with that? But then the question you'd ask is this: what happens to a person who dies accidentally? A young man has a car crash. Car knocks him down and he dies. The reason for that is this: although he has no conscious knowledge of it, but unconsciously he has the desire for death. And that makes him prone to accidents. That's a very common saying, that some people are very prone to accidents. It is all in your mind. You make yourself prone to accidents. You make yourself prone to misery and also to happiness. So, the more happier you are in this lifetime, the more evolved you are, the more aware you are through your spiritual practices, that awareness will remain on the other plane where you would be going to. Now, when I say the other plane, I do not mean a special space. It's not divided up like the other plane of existence is 20,000 miles away, or another plane is 100,000 miles or 5 million miles away. No. All those planes are here and now. Because when you drop the body, you are beyond time and space. And where there is no space, how can you measure it in miles? And if there's no space, how can you measure it in terms of time? It takes you 5.5 hours to fly from the East Coast to the West Coast. So, when you calculate time, you're automatically calculating space. Yes, it took me 3,000 miles, and it took me 5.5 hours to travel 3,000 miles. But in the subtler plane of existence, which is everywhere, it is here, now. There's no time and no space. As each and every one of us are sitting here, there are millions and millions and millions of souls interpenetrating us, flowing through us all the time. All the time. We think this body is solid, but it is not. It is very porous. I did enjoy once in Los Angeles when I went to Disneyland and took one of the rides where they take you through a snowflake. How vast. Beautiful experience. You must, those of you that haven't been there, do go. It's a lovely experience. Experience out of the world. You feel yourself in a different world. But look at the enormity of one snowflake. And you yourself are just as enormous. When you talk of death, naturally you have to consider birth. How are you born? I mean, coming through the natural channels, through your mother's womb. That is all people know about. But when does life come in? At what moment does life enter? After you are born or at the time of conception? Life is always there. And the meeting of the sperm with the ovum gives it the impetus to develop. So, if you are in a certain condition, if you have the proper genetic combinations with all these various sets, as scientists will tell you, those are the kinds of souls that is floating in and out through you. All the time, millions of them, millions of souls. So, when you become pregnant, and at that particular moment of time, when there is this perfect combination of genes, chromosomes, etc., then that particular soul enters you through the sperm with a combination of the ovum. Do you see how easy it is? So here, life is mixed with life, and it was never separate from you. And that is how you have your babies. Yes. So, from that very moment onwards, the fetus starts developing. And in that development of the fetus, I tell women that when you reach 3-4 months in pregnancy, I think we might have a birth in our family in a day or two, perhaps tonight. So when a woman is pregnant, when it reaches around about 5th or 6th months, the fetus starts developing a consciousness. And whatever the mother thinks, that will be implanted in the consciousness of the child. So the growth begins not after birth, but even in the womb. It is a developing consciousness, and life is consciousness itself. The Hindus have a very good system that when a woman is in the 7th month of pregnancy, they have a whole ceremony, a prayer ceremony, and she does not stay with the in-laws The system is this, that the in-laws, the daughter always goes to the husband's home. Always. In other words, the son brings his wife home. And of course, if the woman that got married has a brother, would bring his wife to his home. Now, there are many reasons why the wife goes away to her mother's home, because no mother-in-law can look after a woman better than your own mother. One of the practical reasons. And you find many men are beastly to a certain extent, and even during the last days of pregnancy, they would desire copulation, which is not really a healthy thing, especially among the ignorant people. So, the woman is told to read good scriptures, listen to holy men, talks of holy men, and have her mind filled with good thoughts. And whatever the woman thinks, slowly the growing consciousness of the child gathers it in seed form for it to develop later. That is the basis of birth. Here in this very room, there are billions and billions of souls floating around. Yes. You see. So, that life that is there can never die. There are some sects, sects in India, that cry when a child is born. They say, oh, well, he's come back to school again to learn the hard lessons of life. Other people celebrate, oh, a child is being born. So these are various kinds of beliefs. Child comes into trouble when he's born to work off his or her karma. All those impressions has to be clarified. Meditation is like making ghee. Do many of you know what ghee is? It's clarified butter. Now, butter, if you keep it out of the fridge, it will get rancid after a few days or a week or so. But ghee, you can have it in a bin and it will never go off. It can last for 6 months, a year. Now, to make ghee, you take butter, you throw it in a pot, and you boil and you boil and you boil and you boil. And in this boiling process, all the impurities of the butter rise up. And then you scoop off the stuff that has risen up. Or you strain it. And that is ghee. So, meditation does that. It takes away all the impurities and makes your mind pure ghee instead of butter. So these are the purposes of our spiritual practices, so that you do not need any suffering in this life or the life hereafter. The more clarified you are, the more clear you are, the more happier you are. Now, on the other side, there is no unhappiness. The only unhappiness you might feel would be in self-observation while you're evaluating yourself. You say to yourself, oh, why did I do that? Or I should have not done this, and I should have not done that. That will be your only pain, watching yourself the entirety of all the lives you have lived, watching them, and that might cause you some pain by observation, but no pain in itself. And that is why we have so many, ethical suggestions from the various scriptures, and they preach morality and things like that to clarify yourself. I teach purity. I do not teach morality or ethical standards. Morality and ethical standards are necessary to bring about some stability in this world. But purity is a different thing altogether. An act that could seem very vile could be very pure. In my center, a woman came once, and she was in a hysterical condition. And to help, I started talking with her, but nothing. So I gave her a hard slap, and she was stopped. My office that I had glass windows with a door. My secretary on the other side. She asked me later, why did you slap this woman so hard? I said the purpose was this. It was to get rid of her hysteria. So I left her alone for 15 minutes. And she cried. I said, good, cry. And then after shedding those tears, she calmed down. And then I could speak to her and analyze her problems and what she should do and what she should not do. Now, this seemed a vile deed of slapping this woman, but it was a pure deed. You see the difference between purity. Here you are assaulting someone which is not moral, but the motive was totally pure, to help that person. So, morality and ethics are necessary. But what is more necessary is the purity of motive, because motive is the thing that causes the impressions in your mind that goes over with you when you drop this body. I've had dear relatives that have passed away, and I've never shed a tear, because I know there is no death. No death at all. Because just left this body to take on another body later. And we all need rest. Why do we sleep? Just to rest. And tomorrow, in your sleep state, you don't know who you are. You have no cognition of anything at all. You are in deep sleep. Yet, when you wake up in the morning, you will still know yourself that I'm John or Joe, or Margaret or whatever. And that is exactly what happens in death. So when you emerge again in a body, you're still the same soul. And what you are today is the sum totality of all the lives you may have lived. It works this way. If you add up a sum, 2 and 2 is 4, and 3 is 7, and 2 is 10, 9, 9 and another 3 is 12. So you do not bring all those figures with you of 2 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and... You come into this world as the total 12. That's where you have reached. Yes, sir. So, there is nothing to fear. It is an ongoing process forever and ever, until you have finally merged with full clarity into divinity. But then it does not stop there again. it does not stop there. When you merge into divinity, it's like a drop of water falling into the ocean, that vast ocean of God. And you're still in the process of God energizing this world. Because the ocean is nothing else but drops of water. But it's a restful, beautiful, blissful experience. And that is what we are after, to reach that state of that stillness. Be still and know that I'm God. But you can only be still if you jump into the unknown factor, which we call God. If anyone says, I believe in God, or I have faith in God, remember it is only a mental conception. It is only true for you if you have experienced God and proven to yourself experientially that there is a God. Otherwise, it is just faith. Nothing wrong. And having faith, nothing wrong. At least it's a direction that you are lovely fly. It's a female, definitely. Just say. So we have to go beyond man-made conceptions, not necessarily made by others, but the conceptions made by ourselves. So the church minister stands up there at the pulpit and he says, this eternal damnation and be good, thou shalt not do this and thou shalt not do that. That is a curb on your progress. Why must I not do this and why must I do this? It's because someone else is telling me that. But if I can rely upon my own conscience, the more purer you become, the more clarified your conscience becomes. And if you act according to your own conscience, then you can say, I am me. Be what you are. Do not escape from it, but become better than what you are by the quality of purity. That's the only thing that will make you better. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not kill. Good, fine. But it's not the physical act that's important. If you even think of stealing, you have committed the crime already. The physical action only strengthens the crime you have committed by making a deeper impression in your mind. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Fine. But just the very thought of committing adultery, right, and with the guilty feeling that it is wrong, you have committed adultery 1,000 times by being adulterous only once. Purity is what we want. Motivation is what we want. They talk of celibacy and all that is nonsense. I'm no celibate. I have a love life. Yes, I make love once a year, and some years I forget. Yes. Let your conscience be your guide. And there's nothing like diving deeper within yourself to find the true guide. And even if the conscience is a bit muddied or muddled. Do it. That's the way you'll get rid of it. And if you don't, you're only repressing it and making it stronger. And then through repression, you develop inhibitions. Through repressions and inhibitions, you develop so many other mental imbalances, neurosis, psychosis, depressions. How many people could really say that I never suffer a bout of depression? Very few. These are the underlying causes of depressions. Those conflicting thoughts created by these various so-called church organizations with all the do's and don'ts and, yes, creating conflicts all the time. Yeah. You go into the Himalayas, as I've been, and of course at some monasteries that I was at, they preached severe celibacy. A young man, not an old man like me today, young man, and they say, you must be celibate. But yet the thoughts of sex is there in the mind. How can I call myself a celibate? And then you have your physical problems. So I go to the Swamis and I say, what must I do? You know, they tell me, use ice packs. That is not celibacy. Even if you do not indulge in the coital act, in coitus, you have dreams where nocturnal emissions occur. How can you call it celibacy when the thought is there? That's not celibacy. That's not purity. It must grow upon you, not by force of the do's and don'ts. You must develop that in you, where that desire for sex just disappears from you. Your mind is not on it. Your mind are on much higher things. You have withdrawn your senses, pratyahara. And then sense objects don't bother you. You see? And that is how you become more and more purified. But like making ghee, the butter has to go through extreme heat on the stove. In Sanskrit, those practices are called tapas, T-A-P-A-S, tapas, which also means intense heat, which also means intense spiritual practices. Now, if we clarify our minds to a beautiful level, and it is possible for everyone, you will find that all the actions you perform in life will be right actions. You will find, and this I have experienced 1,000,000 times over, that if I come to a fork in the road and the roads are not marked, I just automatically take the right one. Yes. There is that intuitive self that just tells you what to do. That tells you what to do. Yes. And your life becomes so regulated that you draw all the happiness to yourself. You don't need to be rich. You don't need to be famous. You don't hanker after name, fame, and fortune. That is something very, very worldly. You don't take it with you. You came naked and you go naked. But what you take with you is the purity of the soul And that is your happiness, and that determines your next life. So, there is nothing to fear on the other side. Fear is also allied to your physiological and biological self. The mind, a fearful mind, governs your entire body, your physiology. If you are in deep fear, then there's fight or flight created in you. You run away or you stand up and fight. Mostly fat people, they run away. They're going for flight because being so fat, they can't fight. So you see, preparation for the day to leave the body has to start now. There's an old saying, I don't know the exact words, but live your life in such a way that you're going to die the next moment. It's a beautiful thought. So, be dyed with all the glorious colors of divinity. That is dying. That's my kind of dying. It's now. Let's see, have we got some other dying here? So this guy goes to the psychiatrist, Nasruddin. Psychiatrist asks him, what's your trouble? So he says, I just can't remember. So the psychiatrist says, when did this start? So the fellow replies, start what? This person was coming to the last course, one of our courses here, and he had to go to his boss's office to ask permission to take a week off to come to one of our courses. And when he went to the boss's office, the boss was out, but there was a notice on the desk. When he came back to work, the boss, gave him a little rapping over the knuckles. He says, look, you can't stay away from work for a whole week without getting permission. So the man replies, on your desk I saw this notice, and it said, do it now. So I did it. Went off for a week. Nasruddin married a widow, and the widow gave birth to a child in 5 days. So here Nasruddin started running around to the various shops to buy, school stuff, school case and books and things like that. And so he meets a friend, and the friend says, what are you buying all this for now? Your child is only a few days old. So Nasruddin replies that if my boy made a 9-month journey in 5 days, then he should be in school any day. And then, of course, Nasruddin was passing through the land of fools. He was passing through the land of fools. And he started preaching against sin and evil. And he stood up and people came to listen to him. Thou shalt not do this and thou shalt not do that, sin and evil. And he preached for weeks. So one day when he arrived to give his lecture or sermon, whatever you want to call it, the people were standing with folded arms. So Nasruddin asks, why is standing there with folded arms? Have you decided to shun sin and evil. So they replied him, we have decided to shun you. Yes, and so the schoolmaster, the school inspector rather, turns up at a school where the teacher was giving a class in arithmetic. So the inspector took over the class and he tells the children, give me any number from 1 to 100. So the little girl in the front row said 64. So the inspector wrote down on the board 46. She said 64, he wrote down 46. So another child in the third row, she asked him, you give me a number between 1 and 100. So the child says 87, so he wrote down 78. Now there was a red-haired, freckled boy right in the back row. So the inspector points to him, you give me a number between 1 and 100. So the boy said, 33, and now you try to muck that up. You know, poor John, he met Elizabeth, and they fell in love, and he wanted to marry Elizabeth. So the father says, you know, it's so hard for me to tell you, but Elizabeth is your half-sister. So after a while, he meets another girl, Marjorie, and they were quite close. So he goes to his father and he says, I want to marry Marjorie. So the same old story happened. The father said, you know, Marjorie is your half-sister. And like that, you know, there were 3 courtships. So one day, John was speaking to his mother, and the mother asked him, John, why aren't you married? Of course, when the father told this to John about his half-sisters, he always said, don't tell your mother. Right. So one day the mother asked, John, why didn't you get married? So John explained, you know, about Elizabeth and Marjorie and this other girl. So the mother replies, look, you could have married any one of them because you are not related to your father. Yes, so this Lord so Lord Hancock went somewhere and he gave the doorman 10 cents tip. So the doorman looks 10 cents tip. So he says, your lordship, your daughter always tips me much, much more. So his lordship replies that my daughter has something which I haven't got. She's got a rich father. And this other Lord, Pinkledoe, he came out of his front door and tripped over a wheelbarrow. So he calls the gardener. He says, what is this wheelbarrow doing here in front of the door? So the gardener replies, sir, you should know I brought you to your front door in it. I must explain that to you nicely. Eh? Yeah. Well, thank you.